Paul, what is your favorite fruit?
Pears.
Okay, now...
No, wait. Apples.
Great. Now, say that every day you had an apple. An apple, and more apples. You probably thought that apples were pretty good, even if you got a rotten one every once in a while. Then one day, there was an orange. Now you can choose. Do you want an apple, or do you want an orange? That's democracy.
I also like bananas.
Exactly. Hello.
Hi. How are you?
Oh, can't complain. How the heck are
I'm
you?
so glad to hear that. You know, I'm a little warm. It's a little humid because it's been raining all day. But that is not going to stop us from welcoming the people to episode 210 of Modern Technology Watches.
Season 2, episode 10.
Season 2, episode 10. Not episode 210.
No.
Despite what Amazon might tell you.
No, though, you can listen to us on Amazon Podcast, Amazon Music, Amazon Ear thing.
All I know is if we ask Alexa to play Modern Technology Watches, she will, in fact, play Modern Technology Watches. But with that said, this is Modern Technology Watches, a podcast in which a married couple of film geeks, that's me, Gila Drazen,
and me, Rob Vincent,
introduce each other to movies we have enjoyed that the other one may not have seen, mostly. That is generally what we do.
That is generally what we do.
Part of the reason that I did not make reference to our giant shared film library is that this evening we're kind of stepping out of it a little bit.
Yes, and this was your idea. You asked if maybe we, for this episode, could do something that we don't have in our video library, but that you're going to show me on some sort of streaming service.
I am going to show you on some sort of streaming service. I would like to clarify that it is on a subscription streaming service to which we are, in fact, subscribed. This is completely legal and above board. We're not pirating anything.
Who would accuse us of doing anything untoward?
I know no one who would accuse us of doing anything untoward. We are the most above board people I've ever met.
I'm above so many boards. I mean, look at this floor.
Seriously, we do have a lovely hardwood floor.
Yes.
Okay, so because I cannot very dramatically get up and walk over to the shelf, because if I walked over to the shelf, I would not be able to get this movie because we don't own it, and we are going to be streaming it. What I can do is hand you my phone, because on my phone, I have pulled up the cover of the DVD, which you do for things we've had in box sets.
Yes, indeed.
So this way you can see what the movie is, and then you can also read the back cover copy.
All right.
So I would like to say a big thanks to the folks at dvdcover.com who are allowing us to do this.
I don't know if they could stop us if they wanted to. Oh, okay. You've handed me Election, 1999's Election, which I know little to nothing about, but I know that the poster art for it always freaked me out with Reese Witherspoon's mouth dangling open and Matthew Broderick's head inside of it.
Yes.
But this is not like a vor picture. This is not like some horror movie about a giant Reese Witherspoon that consumes Matthew Broderick's to survive.
No spoilers, but no, it is not.
Damn. Okay. Because that would have been cool. All right. So this is the 1999 movie Election. This is the Region 1 DVD cover on this here website. And on the back, it says, "A winner, very funny, terrific movie, Joel Siegel, Good Morning America." Reese Witherspoon plays Tracy Flick, a straight-A go-getter determined to be president of Carver High's student body. Popular teacher Jim McAllister, Broderick, decides to derail Tracy's obsessive overachieving by recruiting an opposition candidate. Mr. M never imagines that stopping Tracy is like trying to put toothpaste back in the tube. Okay, so this is a high school movie.
This is a high school movie.
Okay. And this is a Reese Witherspoon movie.
This is a movie with Reese Witherspoon. This was long enough ago that it's not like a Reese Witherspoon vehicle. This is not a fluffy rom-com, I promise.
Okay, I have enjoyed Matthew Broderick and things.
Good.
Okay, this looks a lot like something that I would never have chosen to watch on my own steam, but that's what this little project of ours is all about.
It certainly is. And I will tell you, even before we get into it, that part of the reason I haven't seen it in a long time. It is a dark comedy,
Okay.
which I think will appeal to you more than you might think.
Okay.
I think the dark comedy aspects of it will outweigh some of the high school of it.
So we might be in a Heathers type situation?
We're closer to a Heathers type situation than like a Bring It On type situation.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And
Cautiously optimistic.
it is directed and co-written by Alexander Payne.
Alexander Payne.
Alexander Payne.
Alexander Payne.
This is his second feature.
This is a painful feature.
The thing about Alexander Payne
Mm-hmm.
is that he was raised in a little burg called Omaha, Nebraska.
I know someone from there.
I think you do. And his first few movies were all filmed and set, at least in part, in a little burg called Omaha, Nebraska.
Uh-huh.
And I have a lot to say about it that has nothing to do with the movie itself.
Okay.
But with that said, I look forward to hearing what you have to say about it. It's a snappy 103 minutes.
Okay, well, we have dinner here waiting for us.
We certainly do.
And we have a movie.
We do.
We can have our dinner and we can watch 1999's Election.
Let's do it to it.
All right. Push some buttons and make this happen through magic internet tubes.
Fantastic. Let's hand it off to Torley and get this party started.
Okay, 1999's Election.
Election. Rob.
Gila.
Are we back?
We are back.
We are back, and hooray for that.
We have just watched 1999's Election.
We have indeed watched 1999's Election, so I think now you understand why I wanted to wait and show you this one, like, after things had kind of calmed down after the election.
Yes, after the real world election, which you out there may have heard a little something about it. It's this thing that's been going on for about the past 20, 25 years now. It's
yeah, but it was
not the hell
totally done
over.
and dusted on November 3rd. It's completely over.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yes, so
this was election. This was 1999's election.
Which is a very different movie than I would have assumed.
Yeah. I mean, you said, oh, this looks like a high school movie. And I said, technically it does take place in a high school.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, probably a little closer to Heathers than to Bring It On.
Right. But it was indeed a movie.
It was a movie, yes. So, what did you think?
I liked it.
I had a feeling.
I didn't know I was going to like it, but I liked it. We'll get into more of the specifics when we go over the cast and the plot, but in general, I do not regret putting that movie in my eyes and ears.
Oh,
It was a lot of fun, and I had some good, sensible chuckles out of it, and then the twist at the end that had me really going. I got a really good laugh out of it.
yes, you did.
We should mention that too. We have this warning on our podcast in general. We do spoil the movies because we're going to do a full recap and everything. But this particular movie is very twisty and very turny. And if you would like to see it unsullied, if you have not seen it yet, I totally recommend you see the movie before listening to us pull it apart, because we are going to spoil all those twists and turns.
Yes, so just pause us, go watch the movie, come back. Seriously, it's 103 minutes long, including the credits.
Yes, we just watched this on Amazon
Prime. It's on Prime. It's free with Prime.
Free with Prime.
It's also been released in a Criterion Collection DVD and Blu-ray.
Interesting.
The cover is a hand holding a pick flick cupcake.
I do love the Criterion covers. They do good work at Criterion.
So you had not heard of this film.
So I had heard of this movie.
Okay.
I had
never seen it.
I had never seen it. I had never heard details about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I was vaguely aware of this movie. I had seen the poster art, which creeped me out. There was this whole series of president-y movies that I really didn't find myself interested in, and my brain kind of filed this away with all of those. I thought this would have been something to do with American politics. I had no idea it was about high school and school elections. Although, had I heard that, I would have been even less interested in going to see this.
Right, because what I was thinking was there was this huge number of high school movies. There was an explosion of high school movies. Not that there's ever a dearth of them, but there are a lot of them in 1999, 2000. And I know how you feel about high school movies.
Yeah, they're usually not my cup of tea.
So the fact that you thought it was either an election movie or if you had known it was a high school movie, either way, this is not something that would have been up your street at the time.
No. But all this time later, yes, I'm glad I saw it. So how did you become introduced to this movie? Because I feel I'd gotten little glimpses at this story, and I think we need to lay it down on this tape on the record here.
All right. So Alexander Payne, the co-writer and director of Election, is a hometown boy.
Mm-hmm.
And his stuff is set, at least in part, in Omaha. Mm-hmm. He films in Omaha. On a previous episode, I don't remember which one, but I remember on a previous episode talking about the movie About Schmidt,
mm-hmm.
which was filmed in town. And the Omaha World Herald had like a column every day that was called Where's Jack? Everywhere in town that you saw Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson was seen having a slice of pizza at Zio's or whatever the fuck it was. So he filmed his movies
mm-hmm.
in Omaha. And this was a movie about high schoolers. And it was filmed my senior year of high school.
Uh-huh.
Now, obviously they filmed on location in Omaha. And the high school that stood in for Carver High, which was there is not a Carver High School in Omaha. The building they used was Papillion La Vista High School.
Papillion?
Papillion. I know it looks like Papillon or Papillon or whatever. In Omaha, we say that Papillion.
Ah.
Sometimes
that's one of those local wrong pronunciations, like how no one in California can pronounce Los Feliz.
Los Feliz, yeah. So they filmed it at Papillion La Vista,
mm-hmm.
or sometimes they just say Papio. And apparently, I found out Alexander Payne wanted to film it at Omaha North. The superintendent of Omaha schools said no. Papio is its own district,
mm-hmm.
so they filmed it at Papillion La Vista. And Rob,
yes,
you saw there were bunches of shots of passing periods and lunches and assemblies, and what do you need for all of those things?
You need students.
You need students. You need bodies.
Student bodies.
Student bodies, in fact. So, again, this was filmed my senior year of high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this is going to shock you. I was in theater when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I was in choir when I was in high school. And the groups of kids they were talking to saying this movie about high schoolers in town needs extras were the kids who were in theater
mm-hmm.
and in chorus. Literally everyone I knew in high school is in this movie. All of them. I am not in this movie.
You're not in this movie.
I am not. And the reason is because they needed all the extras on Saturdays.
Mm-hmm.
And due to my Shabbat observance patterns, I was not available to go be an extra on Saturdays. So I am not in this movie. And I must tell you that seeing it
mm-hmm.
20 years ago with me was obnoxious. Because I would just say, oh, I just point out every single person I knew on the screen, which was a lot.
You did a little bit of that, but not a whole lot.
I did a little bit of it.
While we were watching.
And I'm sorry, I tried to hold it down as much as I possibly could.
I mean, you pointed out a good friend of yours.
Yes.
That's perfectly fine.
Well, I paused the movie to point out a good friend of mine.
That's true. We weren't like missing bits of the movie, so you could do that.
I pointed out a couple other people.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, this movie, despite all the weirdness and the problematic nature of a lot of the plot, is deeply nostalgic for me.
Mm-hmm.
Not least because, my family moved out of my hometown 18 and a half years ago.
So not too far from this era.
No. My parents moved out of Omaha the summer after I graduated from college. So it's all kind of tied up together.
And you had left your hometown to go to college.
Correct. I went to college in California.
Right.
So I was already gone.
So you had left your hometown.
I had left my hometown.
Not too long after this, I guess, if this was your senior year.
Yeah. Yeah, it came out when I was a freshman in college. A freshman, a sophomore? It came out in 1999. I just don't remember when in 1999. So I was either a freshman or a sophomore in college. Either way, you didn't want to watch this movie with me then.
Mm-hmm.
It was so annoying. I have this on good authority that it was just, you didn't want to see this movie with me. And the thing is that In a lot of ways, this is the hometown that I remember. There have been so many changes to the city in the past 20 years. And I know people are thinking, how much could Omaha, Nebraska have changed? You might be surprised. And even little cosmetic things.
I mean, I didn't see a single ear of corn in this movie.
Ha 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 ha. So there's one thing that really struck me. And it was one of the things that I always noticed as a kid. License plates.
License plates.
The way that license plates worked in Nebraska for a long time. And it's one of the things that changed not long after my family left the city. And it's also like that was when Omaha got cool. You know, no one knew who Bright Eyes was when I was a kid. We leave, Omaha gets hip. I see how it is.
It's okay, dear. You're a New Yorker now.
I am a New Yorker. This is true. So most people, when they see license plates, they think, you know, 3 characters and 3 characters, or 3 and 4, or 4 and whatever, with the picture of the state in the middle. And that's how it works in most places. And that is, in fact, how it works in parts of Nebraska now. But when I was a kid, license plates had the county prefix and a dash, and then some letters and numbers. And they changed that a few years ago. And now more urban areas of the state have a license plate that's like 3 and 3 or 4 and 4 and whatever. But when I was a kid, this is what they looked like. And this is just, it is such a nostalgia piece for me. So the plot of the movie and the story and all of it is just, it's one piece. But there's also just the moment in time in my hometown and what it looked like and what it sounded like. And Reese Witherspoon's accent is wrong. Can we just stipulate to that from the top? It's a little too, like, upper Midwest.
Well, she was trying to be upper class.
We don't sound like that.
I know what you mean, though, because there have been many license plate designs here in New York. And the license plates that were around when I was a kid, I do still get that little wave of nostalgia when I see them in movies. You can see them in the original Ghostbusters. They're yellow filled with dark blue text. And there's something, you know, I don't care about cars. I don't care about license plates. I don't have a damn license, but there's something about seeing cars with those plates in older movies, or just seeing those plates around like at a flea market or something that rouses a little license plate nostalgia for me.
Yeah, it's just...
It doesn't hurt that the modern New York license plates look like ass.
I don't know if this is still the case, but for a long time, Nebraska just had a completely different license design every year. So this whole idea of like you get 10 years of renewal stickers on your... Fuck that, we just got new plates every year. And they looked very different. And some years they looked really stupid. There was a year where it was gradations of yellow up to red. It's supposed to look like a sunset or a sunrise or something. It looked like a container of I can't believe it's not butter. True story. Yeah. So hadn't seen it in a long time. And it is one of those things that there's a lot of squick in this movie. There's a lot of squick and a lot of twists and a lot of turns.
Oh, yes. Yeah, at one point I asked you, is this one of those movies where every single person's an asshole? And no, it's not a Tarantino movie, but...
It's not a Tarantino movie, but yeah. I can't think of who's the good guy in this movie. I really can't. Is there a good guy in this movie?
Well, just Paul.
Is he good? Well, yeah. No, he is.
He's just the innocent dope that everything happens around. But we'll get to that when we go down the list. But yeah, this was a fun one.
I'm glad you liked it. You ready to do the cast?
I am ready to do the cast.
Fantastic. We're actually going to start with someone who does not appear in the Wikipedia cast listing. And that is a woman named Marilyn Tipp.
Marilyn Tipp.
Marilyn Tipp.
Who was Marilyn Tipp?
Marilyn Tipp was the school secretary in this movie.
Okay.
Marilyn Tipp has sort of become a member of Alexander Payne's repertory company and has been in all the movies he's made. At least the ones they filmed in Omaha. I don't know if she was in Sideways.
She was the Edie McClurg.
She's the A.D. McClurg, yeah. But also, she is a Jewish mom who has a son who's my age. We carpooled to Hebrew school when we were in 8th grade. She's lovely. And I believe that both she and her husband were diagnosed with COVID, and I think they're both doing better. But it's just always lovely to see her in these movies. She had a role in Citizen Ruth. She had this part in this movie.
Sure.
She played Jack Nicholson's next door neighbor in About Schmidt. Marilyn Tipp got her SAG card because of Alexander Payne.
Well, good for her.
Yeah. So, we love you, Marilyn. The last person mentioned on here is Peggy Georgeson as Ballot Lady. Yeah, okay.
Okay, yeah.
The one Tracy shows up as Tracy Enid Flick. We know Tracy.
Yes, we know who you are. Harriet Jones, Prime Minister.
Next, we have Frankie Ingracia as Lisa Flanagan.
Now, Lisa was the ex-girlfriend?
Lisa was the ex-girlfriend.
The sister's ex-girlfriend.
The sister's ex-girlfriend, who then became the brother's girlfriend.
Yes.
And campaign manager.
Yeah.
She had great hair.
It was great hair. It was not gray hair.
It was not gray hair.
Not that there's anything wrong with gray hair.
Nothing wrong with gray hair.
This is the two of us speaking.
It's so true. But yeah, no, she had wonderful hair.
Yes.
Apparently she's still acting. She's still doing stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, liked her a lot. I mean, her character was kind of annoying as hell, but that's kind of the point.
Yeah, she served the role.
She did. Up next, we have Matt Malloy as Vice Principal Ron Ball.
That was the white-haired dude?
No.
Or
this is the younger...
The younger bald-headed dude.
The younger bald-headed dude.
Okay, yeah, he was there.
Okay, he was there. I know Matt Malloy from a documentary that I think you and I have spoken about called That Guy Who Was in That Thing.
Uh-huh.
Which is a fabulous documentary about character actors.
Yeah, we have not watched this together, but we've both flipped through the Hey, It's That Guy book that you've got.
Yes, but we have a copy of That Guy Who Was in That Thing, if you ever want to watch it.
Okay. Yeah, he does seem like a that guy, though I didn't immediately recognize him. There were a few that guys in this movie.
He was also in Drop Dead Gorgeous. He was one of the beauty pageant judges.
Uh-huh.
Big year for him.
All right.
Up next, we have Delaney Driscoll as Linda Novotny.
This was the ex-wife of the best friend.
This is the ex-wife of the best friend with the enormous teeth.
With, spoiler again, with whom Matthew Broderick cheats on his wife.
Yes. Enormous teeth.
Yeah, she wears them well, though.
In a surprisingly deep voice. That's the thing that struck me every time, was how deep her voice was.
Yeah, she was good.
She's good. Up next, Mark Herlick as Dave Novotny.
Yeah. I mean, he was only really in the first 10 minutes or so of the movie.
And a brief cameo at the end.
But yeah, with what happens with his character, you know that, oh, this is not going to be just any old movie. It's going there.
It's going there. And he is just super creepy.
We'll say it because, you've seen the movie or you don't care about being spoiled if you're listening to this point. He is a teacher who has an affair with a student.
He was in For Your Consideration.
What was he in For Your Consideration?
I'm looking. Round table host, apparently. Yeah, he's a jobbing actor. Done episodes of stuff here and there, and he's a that guy. These are a lot of that guys. We can do the next couple as a pair also. Holmes Osborne and Janine Jackson as Joe and Dick Metzler.
Which ones were they?
Paul and Tammy's parents.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they only showed up for a brief moment at the end.
They had two scenes, basically. The one where they're yelling at Tammy and telling her she's going to Immaculate Heart.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end, when they are at Village Inn.
Oh, yes.
Because I have told you this.
Mm-hmm.
Denny's was not really a thing in Omaha. We had one, and it was by Westroads. But Village Inn, and this is another piece of the nostalgia of it all for me, because there was a Village Inn down the street from Millard North, which was my high school. And after play practice, we would all go to Village Inn and order pie and fries, and they didn't card for the smoking section, so we could sit in the smoking section so the one or two people who smoked could smoke. Village Inn closed at 2 a.m., so we just go sit at VI. And again, it's just, this movie is so powerfully nostalgic for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of universal. I went to, a handful of different high schools, and each one had its own nearby diner that people just went to and ended up at.
Mm-hmm. Go to Village Inn, get a piece of French silk pie. Life is good. Next on the list, Nicholas D'Agusto as Larry Fouch. Nick D'Agusto is a hometown boy who has become a successful actor.
He was one of the kids counting the ballots.
Yes.
Okay.
He was the one who was like, yeah, you have the key. And
Yes.
he was the one who was like, I counted all the votes.
Yes.
Small but pivotal role.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, had the lead role on a sitcom on NBC called Trial and Error.
Mm-hmm.
He's done a lot of stuff. Done well for himself. Yeah, and he was a high school student playing a high school student, so good job, Nick. Colleen Camp as Judith Flick, Tracy's mom.
Colleen Camp. Oh, hell, that was Colleen Camp. Okay, I did not recognize her.
Okay. Who's Colleen Camp, please, Rob?
Yvette from Clue.
Oh!
Yes, the movie Clue from 1985. Colleen Camp was Yvette the maid, and she was memorable in that role. And not only because of the dance she was doing in the beginning. I thought she looked familiar. Couldn't place her. Now I know. Yeah, she's that guy.
Judith Flick, take one of mommy's pills.
Yes.
And then as Tracy is like medicated, she's like, I just really wish you would have taken my suggestions. Just twist the knife a little deeper, Mom. Why don't you?
Yes. I didn't recognize her without her terrible French accent and maid outfit.
She has a terrible French accent, huh?
Yes. I am frightened. Me too. I also drink the cognac. Yeah.
Up next, Molly Hagan as Diane McAllister.
Molly Hagan.
Molly Hagan.
Yes. I saw the name in the opening credits, and I was racking my brain to remember from whence I saw her. And I realized she was in Herman's Head. There was a sitcom called Herman's Head. I loved this show. The conceit of the show is that there's this main character named Herman, and he's going about his day-to-day life and all the standard sitcom plots and whatnot. But every so often, the camera would cut to what looked like a messy room, but was what was going on inside Herman's head. And you had these 4 actors playing different aspects of his personality, arguing with each other over like this decision they had to make or whatever was going on. And so one of them was this like frat bro looking party dude. He was Herman's lust. There was a professorial dude with glasses. He was Herman's intellect. There was a nervous dude with messy hair who was Herman's anxiety. And then there was Molly Hagan, who was this kind of angelic looking woman who was Herman's sensitivity. It was nice to see her pop up in this.
I did, by the way, segue over to the Herman's Head page. So there were the 4 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then for one episode, there was Jealousy.
Jealousy.
Yes. Who was essayed by Bobcat Goldthwait.
I had forgotten that.
Did you forget it or did you block it?
No. I do remember this because I was a pretty devoted viewer of Herman's Head. It was also
yeah, but I don't know how you feel about Bobcat Goldthwait.
I like him. I like Bobcat Goldthwait.
Okay.
But also Hank Azaria and Yardley Smith from The Simpsons both had live action roles as supporting characters. It was a fun show. Also, at one point, God shows up in Herman's brain, and God is played by Leslie Nielsen.
Yes. Yardley Smith. Herman's Head was the second live action thing I remember seeing her in.
I bet I know what the first was.
I bet you do. It was MathNet, of course.
Of course it was MathNet.
Of course. Oh, man.
Where she was the little girl who was friends with a gorilla.
Yes. Grunt!
That was not the first thing I saw her live in, though, because she was also the younger sister in The Legend of Billie Jean with Helen Slater. And that was a heck of a picture. Anyway. Molly Hagan. Very cute. And also, when the main character cheats on his wife, who is played by Molly Hagan, my sympathies lie with Molly Hagan. How dare you cheat on my childhood crush? One of them.
Up next, Phil Reeves as Principal Walt Hendricks.
White-haired dude.
He was the white-haired dude.
Yeah, he was there.
He was there.
And is he another that guy? Because he seemed vaguely familiar.
He seems very that guy. Yes, is the short answer. He wrote Happy Texas. Holy buckets. Sorry.
What's Happy Texas?
Oh, boy, honey. Happy Texas is a very strange little movie about 2 felons who bust out of prison and wind up having to run a kids' pageant in a small town in Texas. Because when they're hitchhiking, they wind up stealing the RV of a pair of pageant coordinators.
Okay.
It is such a bizarre little film. I'm shocked that you have not seen it.
It sounds bizarre. I'm intrigued.
I think you might enjoy it. It's very strange. A group of 6-year-old girls are doing a dance to Bjork's It's Oh So Quiet.
Oh my.
Oh, yes. So strange. Steve Zahn, Ileana Douglas, Ali Walker, some other dude, and apparently this guy's in it.
Okay.
But yes, he's that guy. Now, let's talk about the main core.
The main core.
The main core. Jessica Campbell as Tammy Metzler.
She also seemed familiar. Did she go on to do other things, or?
She did a couple of things. She's not really acting anymore.
She might have been my favorite actor in this.
She was nominated for an Independent Spirit Award for Best Debut Performance.
For this movie?
For this movie. Yeah, okay. Look at this. This is everything. This is her entire filmography.
Huh.
She basically acted from 1999 to 2002.
Well, and she also, in 1999, had the gay role, so she did very well with it, and I was kind of bumming out in the beginning because it seemed like they were going to do the standard thing of, the gay one is the one that obsesses over another character and never gets any kind of, good things happening to them because they have to suffer because they're the gay one.
Yeah, no, this is an Alexander Payne film. Everyone suffers. Everyone suffers.
But she does all right in the end.
Yeah, and I also just, the moment at the assembly where she's like, this is stupid. And if you elect me, I'll just abolish student government.
Yeah, and she's up there in like a rock t-shirt and a flannel, getting up in front of a class and doing that. And I think I said to you, this is the 90s, all right? It's totally 90s who gives a damn culture, that whole phenomenon. And it was also pretty much where I was on this whole thing. Like, I was not at all interested in student government or things like that. This will shock you to learn this about me.
I'm stunned.
I had no interest in being any part of any of that. And if I had been put up there, I would have said something like what she did, or at least I'd like to think so. When I watch these high school movies, there's always like, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, okay, with who I was in that part of my life, where would I have fit in this crowd or in that crowd or in this imaginary high school? And yeah, I would have been on her side.
Legit. Up next, Chris Klein as Paul Metzler.
Yeah, and he was the big dumb oaf who was nice to everybody and didn't deserve the crap that was raining down on everybody else.
So Chris Klein, first movie role.
Okay.
Alexander Payne was in Omaha scouting at high schools. He was at Millard West, which is the new school in my district. It opened my sophomore year. And he was, looking at locations and decided not to film at West because it was too new. But collided with Chris Klein in the hallway and said, this kid's got something. Et voila, A Star is Born. And right after this, he did American Pie.
Okay. Which I never actually saw all the way through. But he had that really unfortunate boy's haircut that was big in the 90s.
Everybody had it.
Okay, let's just come out and say it, the penis head. That floppy parted in the middle thing that goes rounded around the top of your head and makes you look like a big old organ.
Reese Witherspoon as Tracy Enid Flick.
I don't like her in things. And I think it's because she always comes off like the character she's playing here. But she was good at playing this character, who was supposed to be an irritating ass. Who was supposed to be like the entitled, irritating, pain in the ass, school spirit kid of the type that I had to deal with so much in my school years. And I have an instinctive dislike for that whole aura about a person. And the thing is, she seems to continue to play those, except in other contexts where the movie is trying to say that she's great because she's like this, instead of this one, which is saying she's an asshole because she's like this.
The other interesting thing I thought was we're kind of supposed to get the sense from Jim that as annoying as those people can be to their fellow students, they're annoying to their teachers too. But we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yes.
What more is there to say about Reese Witherspoon in this role?
I didn't see a single spoon. She was Reese without her spoon in this movie. But yeah, she served the role. Because this came out around the time when her career was starting to like really blow up, she went undercover and, was a high school student in Omaha for a few weeks. I think she might have been at Papio. I'm not sure. But yeah, just because people didn't know who she was. Had she ever been kissed before?
I don't know. Probably. Yes, actually on film. But I digress. Getting ahead of myself.
Okay.
And we conclude the cast list with Matthew Broderick as Jim McAllister.
Yeah, Matthew Broderick. The first thing that came to mind when I saw he was playing a teacher in this was, okay, so this is after Ferris Bueller gets older and life kicks his ass a little and he decides to sell out and turn himself over to the other side. He was basically in this playing the Matthew Broderick role, which is that role in any Matthew Broderick movie that Matthew Broderick plays, where he's the guy who has a bunch of weird stuff happen to him and he's trying to deal with it, and he does that big wide like what the hell's going on face. Except in this one he was a bit of an asshole too.
Yeah. I mean, everybody was kind of an asshole.
Yeah. He usually plays the all-around likable guy, and in this one it was a little different because he was playing the all-around likable guy who is also a bit of an asshole.
One interesting thing that he said at the beginning, and this actually will lead us very nicely into the plot, he's talking about how much he loved being a teacher. He enjoyed it. He loved working with the students. It was great. And then he was talking about his friend who was a high school teacher because he still wanted to be in high school, which I think is an important delineation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you can tell. Are you ready for the plot?
Ready as I can be.
But are you ready for the plot?
Yeah, go ahead.
Spirit will set you free. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready for the plot? Okay. Jim McAllister.
You got to stop at a certain point before it gets expensive.
Jim McAllister is a beloved civics teacher at an Omaha, Nebraska high school. One of his students, Tracy Flick, is an overachieving senior whom he resents. Dave Novotny, Jim's best friend and fellow teacher, lost his job and his wife after Tracy's mother discovered that her daughter was having a sexual relationship with him. There was just a whole lot of squick there.
A whole lot of squick, and also the movie didn't immediately take a turn into, okay, this guy's going to friggin' jail because he raped a kid. It's just, oh, that happened, and let's brush that off and make a goofy little side plot out of it. The movie had just started when that was going on, so it was like this whole bunch of, oh, we're going there, oh, we're going there.
One interesting Omaha-centric side note was that first evening when he really starts grooming Tracy, when Dave really starts grooming Tracy at that first yearbook staff dinner, they're at Godfather's Pizza, which is spot on. It's like, after like swim meets, that's where the swim team would go. You go to Godfather's, and there are a bunch of them around town. Go to Godfather's Pizza. Godfather's, shitty pizza. Who owned Godfather's?
Who owned Godfather's?
Herman Cain.
Ugh.
See? And now we've come full circle. Just bringing the 2020 into election.
I see what you did there. Godfather's Pizza was one of those chains that I've only ever heard about or seen in films. Because I grew up in New York, and I don't think anybody had the cojones to open up a place called Godfather's Pizza in New York.
Godfather's opened up a concession at my high school selling pizza by the slice. You get a slice for lunch. Anyway, moving on. While Jim thinks Dave deserved punishment for having sex with a minor, he is bitter that Tracy's mother intervened to protect Tracy from further harm. Because apparently this was Tracy's fault?
Yeah. And also they make a big deal later over Tracy's mother being a frickin' lawyer?
Paralegal.
Still, like, it seems like that would have figured into this equation a little more.
And that does wind up coming up. Later, Jim mentioned something to Tracy, basically about, like, it damaged her reputation. There was...
And tries to use it to score points on her.
Right.
which we'll get to.
There was a story that broke when I was in high school, senior in high school, that a teacher and sports coach had a relationship with a student. He was immediately fired, and we were all talking about it, but like, we all felt bad for her, and no one thought it was like a good thing. And no. Okay. Tracy announces that she is running for student body president and informs Jim that they will be spending time together since he oversees student government. And I think like people knew that they were best friends, and I think he was assuming that she was saying something that she wasn't really saying. Do you think she was saying what he thought she was saying?
I don't know. She was just being like a really eager, creepy student, but you could see that just being how a student would be without necessarily wanting to go there.
Right.
Like, especially they had established her as like, she didn't have a social life. She was in like every club and every extracurricular thing, and was dead set on going and doing every single thing that she could put on her transcript to get into college.
Sorry, side note. There was when I was in high school, we're obviously talking a lot about high school. There was a girl who ran for junior class board, and her poster said, "Please vote for me for junior class board. I need it for my college applications." She got elected.
Makes sense. The only thing I remember, because pretty much everyone who ran for anything in any of the schools I went to was an asshole, except for one girl who was running for treasurer, and all her posters said, "It would be my pleasure to be your treasurer."
That doesn't rhyme. Did she think that rhymed?
I don't know if she thought that rhymed, but it stuck in my goddamn head. And then some years later, of all things, I was watching an episode of Charles in Charge, where somebody used that as a slogan to run for class treasurer, and it was a joke with a laugh track after it.
Do you think she saw it on Charles in Charge and got the idea?
I suppose. I can't be sure which came first, because I'm pretty sure I was watching it in syndication, but who knows? Chicken,
egg, who even knows? Appalled by this, and the fact that Tracy is running unopposed, Jim encourages Paul Metzler, a popular football player, to enter the race. Sidelined because of a broken leg, Paul finds his candidacy gives him new purpose. It also infuriates Tracy, who resents Paul's effortless popularity and privileged upbringing. Yeah, nice guy, but stupid.
Yeah.
Just stupid.
Non-malicious stupid.
Non-malicious stupid.
Which was, I think it might have been the biggest leap for me to make to suspend my disbelief, because...
He was an athlete, but he was not mean.
He was an athlete and popular, but he was not mean. Those are the people who did the most stomping on me in my high school years.
Understood. Paul's younger sister, Tammy, is dumped by her girlfriend, Lisa Flanagan, who becomes Paul's girlfriend and campaign manager. Deeply hurt, Tammy exacts revenge by running for president on a nihilistic platform that student government is a sham.
Again, I would have been on her side. And also the whole plot where she's doing it just to get back at her ex, and her ex is just dating her brother to piss her off. Like, yeah, the ex is the first in a long line of characters who do deliberately crappy things to be pieces of crap.
Yeah. Oh, yes. There's no question. The three candidates make their campaign speeches to the student body at an assembly. Tracy draws polite applause, while Paul receives a warm reception despite giving a halting and lackluster speech. Let's talk about that for a second.
Okay.
So Tracy walks up with like her speech on note cards. She doesn't look at them because she's got her speech memorized. But nobody likes Tracy. So, she does her thing. They clap. She's gone. Paul receives a rapturous ovation. He pulls out a piece of notebook paper, unfolds it, and reads directly from it in about this cadence, and then is done.
Yes.
Vote for Paul Metzler, thank you. And everyone's like, "Oh, yay, we love Paul." Then Tammy delivers a defiant address in which she denounces the election and vows to dissolve student government if she wins. Tammy's speech rallies the students to a rowdy standing ovation, but it also gets her suspended from school.
Yeah, it was basically Fiona Apple holding up her, what was it, an MTV award?
MTV Video Music Award, yes.
And going, "This is bullshit." Yeah, I would have voted for her. even after she was suspended.
Well, that comes into play later, but we'll get back to it.
Yes.
While working on a yearbook project during the weekend, Tracy sees that one of her campaign posters has come untaped from the wall.
Mm-hmm.
She tries to secure it, but accidentally rips the poster apart because she stood on a garbage can and it slipped and she fell and she took the poster with her.
Mm-hmm.
In a fit of rage, she destroys the other candidates' campaign posters, mostly Paul's, and discards them in a dumpster, unaware that Tammy sees this. Because what are the odds that she's going to pick, like, the one... There was a dumpster behind the school, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, she drives to a different dumpster by the power station that it's been established. What's her name?
Tammy.
Tammy just sits and watches the power station while she's alone with her thoughts. And there's this funny scene where she rips down a bunch of the posters that had like red paint on them, and she looks down at her hands and it looks like she has blood on her hands after she's like horrified at what she's done. One thing I had mentioned during this whole scene is it's funny to think about it because in this era and in your era of high school and in my era of high school, you could go flip out in the hallways and do something like this and people wouldn't automatically know who did it because schools were not yet full of security cameras.
Right.
Nowadays, they would immediately know who did it and go from there.
I mean, beyond that, do you think in this age of liability, you'd be able to have a kid in the building functionally alone on a Sunday anyway?
Yeah. There was a year I was on set crew for, the school play. And, we were at the school after hours setting that up. And there was something I had to get from the art room. And I'm, walking from the auditorium to the art room and back and just basically having the run of the school by myself, which was an odd feeling for someone who grew up watching The Breakfast Club a little too much. I don't think that would happen now.
No, it was one of the best parts of being in the play at school. Was we were all required to be at every rehearsal, regardless of whether we actually needed to be rehearsing.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the run of, obviously, the theater, but we also had access to the cafeteria and the teacher's lounge. We just go hang out in the teacher's lounge, right across from the theater.
We totally couldn't.
We totally did. And a friend of mine figured out how to tip the vending machines correctly to get candy out of them. So he would just sort of crawl on top of the vending machine and just tip it correctly. He'd be like, "What do you want?" Somehow he knew how to tip it right so that he could
the vending machine whisperer.
Most of us just took potluck, but it was kind of great.
It's okay. I think the statute of limitations is expired on that.
I hope so.
Particular crime.
Yeah. When Jim confronts Tracy the next day with his suspicion that she removed the posters, Tracy feigns innocence and threatens to sue the school. In a ploy to get permanently expelled, Tammy falsely claims she vandalized the posters and produces them as proof, having retrieved them from the dumpster.
That's when they have that sort of battle of wills, Matthew Broderick and Reese Witherspoon, where they're talking obliquely around it, but they're threatening each other, basically, with stuff around... their relationships and the statutory rape incident.
The teacher got into trouble, but you didn't get into trouble, and your reputation could be in jeopardy.
Right. Yeah.
Ew.
Ew. Very ew.
I understand that you didn't want to work with this kid, but suck it up, man. It's student government. It's not real.
Yeah. And then she comes back at him if everyone found out that you couldn't impregnate your wife, which is this side plot that they've got going on. Oh my, this movie.
Tammy is expelled. Mm-hmm. Her name is struck from the ballot. And her parents enroll her in a private Catholic school for girls, much to her delight.
There was a scene before that where you see Tammy riding her bike around town when she's been suspended from school. And she's talking about all the different characters have moments of voiceover where they're just narrating what's going on with themselves. And she's talking about how being suspended from school seems so stupid because it's like having a paid vacation day. And she stops near the Catholic school where out on the field, all the students there are running around playing, what was it, soccer?
Soccer.
And she's watching the game and watching the girls, getting a little twinkle in her eye, which makes sense later when the parents send her to the Catholic school as punishment and she starts laughing.
There's one point where in her voiceover, she's like, "I'm not a lesbian. I'm attracted to the person. Just everyone I'm attracted to happens to be girls." Also, when they'd already printed the ballots and Tammy's name was on them. Mm-hmm. So Tammy's no longer a student at Carver. but they've already printed the ballots. So you see Jim sitting there with a Marks-a-Lot crossing her name off every ballot.
Yes.
Hilarious. Okay, the day before the election, Jim visits Linda Novotny, Dave's ex-wife, who initiates sex by kissing him.
Good job, Wikipedians.
Linda asks Jim to rent a motel room for an after-school rendezvous, but she fails to show. When Jim drives to Linda's house to find her, he is stung by a bee, causing a severe allergic reaction on his right eyelid.
That squicked the hell out of me.
He returns home to find Linda and his wife talking. Knowing his encounter with Linda has been exposed, he spends the night in his car.
That was well staged and directed. This movie, this movie did very interesting things with the direction. I got to take my hat off to some parts of it. Yeah, when he goes into his house after waiting at the motel room and his affair lady doesn't show, and he goes to her house shouting at the windows at her, getting stung by a bee in her yard, and you see him leave the motel room dejected with like a bouquet of flowers that are, limp.
All the stuff he had bought to set the scene.
Yeah. It's dark and he drives up into his driveway and you see him go into his kitchen and like go in the fridge and whatever. And then he hears the baby babbling and they don't have a baby. Linda has the baby and she was going to get a sitter to watch the baby while she went off to the motel room with him. You see him creep around a doorway to look in the room where his wife and the woman he had cheated on his wife with are sitting there talking to each other, and they both look at him, and his wife has been crying, and he just goes, okay, and leaves. I would never have described Matthew Broderick as like a great actor. He's very good at doing the Matthew Broderick role, but he's got his moments. And in this movie, that was one of those moments where you saw everything that was happening to the character as he just went, okay, and did that face. And then, yeah.
So he goes and sits in front of her house in his car all night. Next day, he gets up. We've seen at the beginning of the movie that like people sometimes go and work out and shower at school. So, he probably has extra clothes stashed at work. Fine. So he gets there, he changes, whatever. During the next day's election, Jim oversees the tally of ballots, despite being sleep deprived and disfigured from the bee sting. This is not doing proper credit to the voicemails.
Yes.
Phone messages in the parlance of the time.
Answering machine
messages. He leaves an increasingly unhinged series of messages on Linda's home phone.
Which is still like the outgoing greeting on it is, you've reached the Novotnys.
We'll get back to you soon.
Yeah, she never changed it after the dude left.
Well, that was the thing that you never wanted people to know you were a woman living alone. My grandmother never changed the outgoing voicemail after my grandfather died.
Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
So, where are you? I trusted you. What happened? I love you. It's Jim.
Yes. You've ruined my life. You've ruined Linda's life.
Is this what you wanted?
Yeah. I love you.
I just want to hear your voice. Honey, she's on the outgoing message.
Yeah. I think we should talk. After you've ruined my life, you've ruined her life. Yeah. I think we should talk.
He calls her from every phone available. Again, it's 1999, 98, 99. So he doesn't have a cell phone.
Yeah, but he's calling from his desk phone at the school, and then you see him calling from like the payphone in the hallway.
Near the urinals.
Yes.
Before all of this, the scene where he gives his class a quiz and then leaves so he can get stuff set up for the rendezvous at the motel. Yeah,
you hear his voiceover narration talking about like, I needed to make enough time to set everything up. So he's pop quiz, everyone, at the top of the class. And then you see him running out the door, running to his car. He's got this weird ass run that he does. It's just this little quirky white guy run, like this middle-aged white dude run that is just so bizarre.
So like he goes to Walgreens to get flowers and chocolates and champagne.
Yeah.
Or sparkling wine, probably. So, okay. Pro tip for the fellas from Gila.
Okay.
If you're trying to set the mood.
Yes.
At a motel where all the rooms open to the outside. Do not. Get a bottle of sparkling wine and a box of Russell Stover from Walgreens and think you're doing a good thing. So just a little romance tip from your friendly neighborhood podcast host.
Hang on, I got to write this down. All right.
Also, hotels where the rooms open to the inside is a good thing. Okay. After the ballots are counted, Tracy wins by a single vote, cast by Paul, who votes for her because he thinks it dishonorable to vote for himself. It turns out later that the number of votes that Tracy and Paul each got is smaller than the number of people who abstained or just straight out voted for Tammy.
Right.
Tammy would have won.
Right. Although they made an announcement over the PA. Tammy is no longer eligible. You can vote for any of the other candidates, but not Tammy.
And Jim's sitting there with one single Mark's a lot marker.
Right.
During the ballot counting, Jim spots Tracy dancing gleefully in the hall after a student counting votes surreptitiously signals that she won. Jim secretly disposes of 2 of Tracy's ballots and declares Paul the winner.
Mm-hmm. Yes, she won by 1 vote.
1 vote. So,
or as the kid said, it's a squeaker.
It's a squeaker, Mr. M. When a janitor discovers the 2 discarded ballots in the trash and shows them to the principal, Tracy becomes president and Jim is forced to resign.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, he has thrown away the ballots. The kid who was in charge of counting the ballots is like, that's not the number of votes I counted.
Right.
And again, 803 votes. And Tracy got 257 and Paul got 256.
Yeah.
So that's still, there are 300 votes missing.
Mm-hmm.
Because 300 people voted for Tammy. Or just, abstained. Because what really does a student council election matter? But getting away from the story. He's thrown away the ballots. They are at another assembly announcing, the principal's announcing the winner of the election. Tracy stands up, but it's Paul.
Mm-hmm.
That night at Village Inn, Mr. McAllister bumps into the Metzlers. They're very excited to see him.
Mm-hmm.
Paul's got all kinds of ideas. Jim's like, we could talk about this. Like, we have a whole year to talk about this stuff.
Yeah. There's also the great scene where he goes, well, do you think Tracy's all right? And Mr. M goes, oh, I'm sure Tracy's fine. And then you see her just wailing and bawling her eyes out on her bed. And the camera does this really funky thing where like she falls sideways onto her bed and the camera twists with her. So like she's still and everything else is tilting around her. It's a good move. High five the director for that one.
Oh, and you know what we forgot to mention? Well, we didn't forget to mention. It wasn't in the Wikipedia write-up. The prayers.
Oh, yes. They're all praying the night before the election. Yeah.
So Tracy obviously is praying to win.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Tammy is praying for leather pants.
And to be friends with Madonna.
But that Paul will win.
Yes.
And then Paul says, look, God, whatever you decide is going to happen tomorrow is going to happen tomorrow. I just want Tammy to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's inherently a good guy.
Yeah, and he cares about his sister.
Dumb as a box of rocks. But a nice guy. When a janitor discovers the 2 discarded ballots in the trash and shows them to the principal, Tracy becomes president and Jim is forced to resign. He thought he had got away with it.
Yes. And this was the bit that cracked me way the hell up.
Today's going to be the day I get my life back.
Now, we didn't mention that in the beginning of the movie, you see him go into the teacher's lounge and he opens up the fridge and there's a bunch of old food in it. So he pulls out, a trash can and starts looking at the old food in the fridge and throwing it in the can. And just as the custodian's walking by with the big trash can and the cleaning cart, and he looks in, Matthew Broderick takes out like a thing of old Chinese food and throws it, but it just ends up all over the floor.
Misses the garbage can.
And you see the custodian glaring daggers at this because Mr. M doesn't care. And you just see this enraged custodian. And then later at the end, it's this enraged custodian that found the wrinkled ballots in his trash can and brought them to the principal's.
Fun fact, the janitor, a janitor at one of the girls' Catholic schools in the city.
So the custodian was played by a custodian?
Correct. So after this has happened, Jim has been forced to resign.
Mm-hmm.
He said, so after Tracy and her mom left, Walt asked for a moment alone with me. It's pretty easy. I offered my resignation and he accepted it. So then he goes home.
You see him like washing his car and thinking, okay, well, this is just a prompt for me to really concentrate on getting my life back together.
Oh, and he has slept at the motel the night before because his wife wanted him out of the house.
Right.
You see him checking into the motel, and the clerk is like, "You want the same room?"
Mm-hmm.
Sure, he says.
Yeah. And he tries to buy a comb and a razor from the vending machine, and it gets stuck in the machine, and you see him wailing on the machine and trying to get,
It's a lovely moment.
It is.
So he's gotten the car washed.
Mm-hmm.
Then he goes to school.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Marilyn Tip says to Jim, Walt wants to see you. So he goes and opens up the door to the principal's office. He's like, "You rat?" And like, you just
and
see...
he sees everyone gathered around
You see
the
everything
desk,
change in just a moment.
Mm-hmm.
And the tableau of who's in the office: principal, the vice principal, Tracy and her mom, the kid Larry, who was in charge of counting the ballots, and the custodian.
Yeah. And the kid who on whose counting he cast aspersions.
Correct.
That was great. Yeah, that was just a well-crafted chunk of movie right there.
So after he is no longer employed at Carver,
mm-hmm.
he goes to his house. You see his wife open the door.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see his wife close the door while he's speaking.
Mm-hmm.
That's that.
Good old Molly Hagan. Don't cheat on Molly Hagan. She's cute.
Never. So he says, "She kept the house. I got the car." And at one point, he's in his car and he's at an intersection, and Larry, the kid whose counting he had cast aspersion on,
yes,
pulled up next to him and
rolls down his window, and you see him glaring back at Matthew Broderick, and then he just spits on his car.
And then in the voiceover, Matthew Broderick's like, "I needed to get out of Omaha."
Yeah, they show like news articles and stuff about the
story
scandal.
the story coming from Omaha out to the entire country. He's like, this is the sort of thing people emailed to each other.
Yes.
When that was still a novelty.
Yeah.
Emailed to each other, put in their office bulletin boards.
And I think at this point I asked you, is this why Omaha is such an outlier when it comes to like their electors and they're keeping the districts separate and not being an all or nothing state?
That's totally it.
Yeah. They take this stuff seriously.
They do.
You can't screw with the election there.
Divorced and humiliated, Jim leaves Nebraska and fulfills a longtime dream of moving to New York City, where he becomes a tour guide at the American Museum of Natural History and begins dating a new woman.
Mm-hmm.
Tracy attends Georgetown University, while Paul enrolls at the University of Nebraska at Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
There's a line where he's like, "I got in Nebraska like I wanted." Side note. In the 90s, I don't know if this is still the case, but in the 90s, basically, if you graduated from a public high school in the state of Nebraska and you were in the top 75% of your graduating class, they had to take you at Lincoln.
Okay.
There was a girl in my graduating class who got an 11 on her ACTs, but she was like high enough a class rank that they had to take her at Lincoln. Do you know how hard it is to get an 11 on your ACTs? If you signed your name and leave the whole fucking thing blank, you get an 18.
Well, okay. And the other thing about this, when you see Matthew Broderick, like he leaves Omaha, and he also like he spends the whole movie with this sort of longish, like almost 70s-ish haircut, and it's only when he gets out of Omaha, moves to New York City, gets this exciting new life as a tour guide, that he has what you would think of as the normal Matthew Broderick haircut that he has in everything else.
Yeah, his apartment's smaller than ours.
Yes, his apartment's smaller than ours, and in 1999 was like $1,500 plus utilities. That was funny.
He's got basement in Manhattan.
Yeah,
a bathtub in the middle of the room.
Yeah, and his voiceover is going on about how great it is, and he's like, "Yeah, it's not as big as I used to have, but like I get a lot of reading done on the subway, and sometimes I even walk to work.
I don't even need a car."
Yeah, I love not needing a car. Yeah, which is something I love about living in the city.
Yes. Tammy finds a new girlfriend at her all-girls school. And this was one of the most fun parts for me, when there's like a montage of her and her girlfriend doing new fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it is all the stuff that you would do with your friends or your partner when you were in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hey, they're riding the slides at Central Park Mall. Oh, hey, they're in the old market. They're feeding the ducks downtown. Like, these are all legitimate things that everybody does. We had a field trip when I was a senior in high school, and we routed to school past the slides, and our teachers were passing out wax paper.
Wax paper?
To go on the slides to make it go faster.
Okay.
The next time we're in Omaha, I'll show you.
Wax paper to go down the slide. I guess this is one of those things that...
maybe it was an urban legend. I don't know. But
my childhood just didn't contain.
was a big slide the bump, and it was very exciting. Okay. Also, the girlfriend's name is Jennifer, so the whole section of them being young and in love in Omaha is scored to Jennifer Juniper. Jim encounters Tracy one last time during a trip to Washington, D.C., when he sees her getting into a limousine with a Republican congressman. Mm-hmm. Disgusted at Tracy's success, Jim impulsively hurls a cup of soda at the limo as it drives away. Jim later speaks to a group of elementary school students at the museum, refusing to respond to the raised hand of a bright girl who reminds him of Tracy.
Yeah. And that was funny because as he's watching her, like chatting with this congressman as they're getting into their limo in Washington, and he's going on about how, I'm not even angry at her anymore. I just feel sorry for her and this and that. And his inner monologue is getting more and more freaky and just like, but who the hell does she think she is? And what's she doing in that limo? And then he hurls his Pepsi at her.
Like full cup of Pepsi. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So that's Election.
That is Election. This was a fun movie, a very squicky movie.
Extremely squicky.
A movie that in many ways, and it's almost hacky and cliche to even say this about an older movie, but I don't think this could get made today.
Mm-mm.
Or certainly not without severe alterations and maybe a little less rape.
I was reading something where, like a review on Amazon. I was looking on Amazon, and someone was like, watching this movie after Me Too is so radically different.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's one of those movies that I could see if I were, a much younger person watching this in 1999, where I was in life then and stuff. I think I would have had different reactions to things like that. But I probably would have liked it back then, and I like it now. And it's a weird little movie. I don't know if I'll immediately want to go back and rewatch this anytime soon, but I'm glad I've seen it.
I enjoyed sharing it with you. And again, it's interesting for me because the movie itself is so separate from like the background and the city. Like the city is almost another character for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I can dig it.
So where's your Firefly, Mr. Firefly?
I would say my Firefly is thinking that Firefly ratings are stupid and why would you even participate in, but secretly it's up.
My Firefly is unabashedly up. My Firefly is filled with school spirits. No, it's not. I don't know. I had a letter jacket. Did I ever tell you that?
Who the hell did I marry?
I lettered in academics and eventually in music. And yeah, I had a letter jacket. It had my name on it. It's very exciting.
I had fantasies of getting a letter jacket that was maybe the opposite colors to the ones that were there, and maybe with the letter stitched on upside down. I have a feeling that would have gotten my ass kicked more than it was already getting kicked.
Aww. I love my letter jacket. So, listeners, if you have seen Election, if you haven't seen Election and you're mad that we spoiled it for you, even though we warned you.
We freaking warned you.
We told you twice.
What the hell are you upset about?
Bored.
How dare you?
Bored.
How very dare you?
I warned you. I warned you twice. We would love to hear from you.
Yes. We've been getting lots of interest and lots of listeners, and I enjoy looking at the statistics for this podcast. We know you're out there, and we know you're listening, and we appreciate that so much. And we would love if you even just said hi. If you email us at watches@modern.technology and tell us what you think of this episode, a previous episode, or suggest something that we might watch in the future. Or just give us your thoughts on today's movie, other movies in general, moving pictures, the illusion presented by frames shown in sequence at a high speed, so persistence of vision makes you think that you're watching something move in front of you. Yeah.
Exactly. If you'd like to tell us about your favorite movie set in your hometown.
Absolutely.
Drop us a note.
And if you're interested in getting in touch with us, but you do not wish to email, you can call us on the telephone by dialing United States phone number 1-929-399-8414. You can get our answering machine, which is to say our voicemail, and you could leave us a voicemail about how much you love us and how we ruined your life and how much you love us. And If you leave us a voicemail and say it's for Modern Technology Watches, we might play your voicemail on a future episode. We won't share your phone number or your identifying info unless you want it shared and say so.
And if you don't want to email us, and if you don't want to call us, you can also interact with us publicly by finding us on Twitter at MTPodcastNet. Have a conversation with us in view of the whole entire world, or slip into our DMs. You got options.
You do indeed. And so I think it's time to say thank you for listening to episode 210 of Modern Technology Watches.
Indeed.
We're coming to the end of our second season. We've only got a few more left.
Time flies.
We've got an exciting project in the works for our third season.
We certainly do.
Which we will not say anything more about.
We will not, but it's awesome, and we can't wait to unleash it on the world.
It's awesome. It involves some cool people, and yes, we're looking forward to it. But until next time, this has been Rob Vincent.
And Gila Drazen.
And we will see you in the future.
Eventually. Someday. Some way. We'll see you at the movies.
Out of sight.
Out of sight. You've been listening to episode 210 of Modern Technology Watches with Gila Drazen and Rob Vincent. Go to modern.technology on the web for more info on this show, our other work, and our social media cupcakes. Our music is The Promise by Torley Wong, released Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 3.0. Find more from Torley at torley.com. Thank you, Torley. Content from wikipedia.org is used under Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 3.0. This podcast is released under Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 4.0 and is a production of Joyful Firefly, LLC. Send us email at watches@modern.technology. And if you like us, tell a friend, or a stranger, or an enemy. One of my teachers in high school, who shall remain nameless, she was one of my Spanish teachers. I don't know why. She barely spoke Spanish. When I keep talking about the terribly dubbed version of E.T. where everyone talked in the same voice, that was her class.
I see.
Because she showed us movies every goddamn week.